stream is cleared for takeoff. Hi everyone, welcome to our February/March developer Q&A. My name is Jane. I am the Senior Community Manager for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's great to see everyone today. Hope you're doing well. Below me we have Jorg, Seb, and Marcial here today. How are you all? How are you doing?
Fine.
Doing good. We're glad to have you, and we're happy to do another Q&A today. Before we kick things off, there's a few things I want to mention first about the format of this Q&A. Likely this is going to be about an hour-long Q&A. The format is slightly different. We're going to have 3 different Q&A segments between other updates that we want to share. So we do ask that you hold your questions until we get to each of those Q&A segments. This will break it up a little bit more so we can be a little bit more interactive and get some more questions in than we usually do. With that said, first, before we dive in, I'd like to turn it over to Jorg to talk about the world outside of Flight Sim.
Yeah, just before we begin, we just wanted to acknowledge the tragic situation in the Ukraine. Our thoughts are with those in the region right now, and for peace and safety. We seriously considered not having this Q&A today, as it just doesn't seem quite right to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
But life must go on, so we decided to have it, but don't expect us to be like overly celebratory today. The situation actually does affect us. Even as fans of aviation and even our own release plan. We have friends and colleagues in the region who make add-ons with us, and we're in contact with them. So far, they're all safe, thank goodness. We have lost contact with Antonov. They sit in Kiev, as you might know. And honestly, we're trying not to bug them. So the Antonov AN2 is delayed for that reason. And then, of course, there's the Antonov AN2, depending on which news you believe. It seems like it might have been destroyed, which is just a huge loss. We all here admire this plane, love this plane. And anyways, so thank you for listening to this. Just wanted to acknowledge this before we get going with our dev Q&A. And so let's go start. Thanks for acknowledging all this.
Thank you, Jorg. Yeah, we appreciate that so much. And yeah, so there were a few follow-ups that we wanted to go over a little bit before we dive into this Q&A from the last Q&A. Just some questions that the community had and some clarifications. So that being said, there's 3 items on this list. And the first one was mention of the broken achievements. Last Q&A. We weren't aware. We got a big list from the community. I know some are fixed in Sim Update 8, so Marcia, I was hoping you could maybe list which ones or what we fixed in Sim Update 8 regarding achievements.
Yes, hopefully they are all fixed. We had 2 layers of issue, I would say. The first one was server-side, and so every achievement related to this bug has been fixed for Sim Update 8. It should be also the same for the last 2 ones, which were linked to live events. The way we're doing live events was not taking into account with the achievement systems. So there were two achievements called spotlight events and decathlons. Those 2 events was not working because of this. So we fixed the way we're doing the live events. Should be now considered by the achievement systems and then fixed.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcial. The second follow-up we have is, I know everyone was asking sort of for a list of Xbox aircraft that were in development. Jorg, if you want to speak to this of what we're doing now in our dev updates every week.
Yeah, so thank you for saying that, and it's nice that people care how many planes come to Xbox. So I've added a row. I hope it helps just to acknowledge how many planes are coming. There's also, I don't know if we get to this here, Jane, or later. We have been investigating multiple ways to get all the planes on Xbox, even the ones that have WASM. The platform is working on it. The platform team has dedicated a team now to this, but it's going to take a while. So, and a while means, don't be shocked, it could be next year. So that is not acceptable, and we have therefore baked our own solutions, and one of them looks really promising, and we're currently doing internal testing. And if that all comes together, then we hope to be able to bring Wasm planes to Xbox in short order. I don't know exactly when, but it's definitely in the next few months if it works. So a little bit of a caveat, but we are very, very focused on this.
That's great news. Thank you, Jorg. The last item to bring up, last week someone asked if it would be easy to create a toggle for on and off for plane ghosting for formation flyers, and I believe you have an update on that, Seb.
Yes, so we discussed with the team, and it's been added to the list of features we're going to bring in Simulbit 10. It was a little bit late for Simulbit 9, and it's going to be in 10. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. With that said, I'd love to move on to you, Jorg, to talk a little bit about Xcloud, which released yesterday.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard, I don't know if you fundamentally are the crowd that cares, but like Xcloud, it's a big deal for us. We call it Xbox Cloud Streaming, by the way. I'm not supposed to say Xcloud anymore. I don't know if you played it. Like, so I've been geeking around because this is my iPhone 12 and I'm playing on my Backbone, and I have to say it's freaking awesome. Like, so this is, and why is this relevant? Well, quite a few people on this earth don't have infinite amount of money, so they can't buy high-powered computers. They can't even sometimes get an Xbox, and this is really, I really feel like this is democratizing gaming a lot more. It is a 1080p 30 frames a second stream, so it's not what you can get if you have the best rig possible. But we launched yesterday, and just the amount of people I've heard from in countries that are just socioeconomically not that well off, it's delightful. I don't know. Look at that, this Paris, wee, terrible flight, Jorgie.
That's awesome.
And it is a shockingly good experience for that type of device. You can stream it to. I have like the stack of old laptops, like 8 of them, go back 15 years or something. Mostly couldn't figure out how I do actually get rid of them, and now they become gaming machines again. So it's great. It's great for flight simming. We have seen a shit ton of people joining flight sim for the first time in places that have just not been able to engage with us yet. So I think it's great for the hobby, and the platform team that did a lot of that work, it's done a great job. So check it out if you have time. We are very proud of it. And this was, by the way, if you remember this little advents calendar thing that I had last time, it was one of the surprises, because people have been asking, hey, when is this working on Xbox One? Now it's working on Xbox One, but it's going much further. It works on Xbox One and a bunch of phones and tablets, old PCs, and the device palette will just grow over time. So it's good news to reach more people.
That's awesome. We do have a couple questions about Xcloud here in chat, Jorg, if you're willing to answer. One of them is about, we know we could use an Xbox controller for Xbox Cloud Gaming. Do you know if what other peripherals, if any, is able to be used for Xcloud?
Yeah, ASAP. So basically, obviously, just all of us here, I'm working on mouse keyboard, I have my fly stick and my pedals. So the next step for us is mouse keyboard. This is a platform level support, so it has nothing to do with us. Obviously, mouse keyboard works for our sim. So the platform team is working on this. I know I can't give a date because it's the platform team. I don't know their dates, but it's coming. And we are also talking about making touch work. And then I'm very fascinating. I played a game called Gears 5 not too long ago on Xcloud, and has the gyro. And it's actually very good. So you can basically see yourself doing it even more, get a little bit more into the experience of flying a plane. So those are things that I would say it's in the next months. It's not weeks, and it might be, I'm hoping it's going to be done by June or so, but I can't ever tell. But I know that everybody wants it. I want it, and so it's coming.
Awesome, cool. Thank you so much. I think that'll bring us into our first Q&A session here, which all the top questions from the forums were all about weather, so I figured this whole session could be about weather. Chat, if you have questions about weather, feel free to ask. Before we delve into it, Marcia, would you be able to give just kind of a recap on what changed with weather. As far I think it was back in Sim Update 7.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Thanks.
So we started Flight Sim using also the raw data from our partner, which is called Meteor Blue. And this raw data was showing some discrepancies with the Meteor data. So the idea was to ingest those matter into the weather simulation that Meteor Blue runs for their forecast. And that's what we did with the last update on the weather. So it's better in a way that the Meteor data, when you're getting those, they're closer to what you get in the simulations. But we know that we are still having some discrepancies, or maybe that in some areas the smoothness we had previously has not been back. So we're going to talk about that, but we are still working on this, and we still want to bring some improvement on the weather systems. So this is what has been done in Sim Update 7.
Yes, thank you, Martial. And that leads to our first question, the highest voted in the forums, and I see people in chat already asking this. When will the clouds in live weather reflect the variety of cloud types in real life, and not simply cumulative forms as they appear to be in recent builds?
I can take this. So it partially already does. So basically it's a question of how detailed we make the voxel that holds all the cloud information. I think the data we are currently getting from the weather provider has 60 layers, 60, and of information in each layer. It sort of tells you how much cloud there is. And in our cloud rendering, I wouldn't say something wrong. I think we have 64 or maybe 32, but I think it's 64, something like that. So the question here, in order to get basically cloud shapes, we need to have smaller voxel spaces, and also most of you have probably seen with the latest updates, there's been a new slider in the clouds. I think before it was only we've added density, I think, and that before it was only how scattered they were, and then you had coverage. I think you had coverage, scattered, and now you have coverage, scattered, and density. And there's also some 3D sort of voxel texture system going on that makes the clouds more or less fluffy. I think when you reduce your graphics setting, you sort of see that, because the textures go away, like the more detailed ones. And so here I would say, for basically any system we add to the presets we can use for the live weather. So here we can add in the future more systems to make the cloud, basically another slider to make the clouds maybe less fluffy and more uniform, which then allows you to, if you stretch them, to make maybe cirrus more or anything like that. So yeah, this is basically something we've been progressively improving, and every time we add something new, you can make more and more cloud types. I mean, there's just I mean, in nature, nature doesn't make a cloud type, right? Nature just simulates physics, and then we call them whatever, Mamatus or whatever. There's maybe 100 cloud types or something like that. Basically, the more accurate the system gets, the more out of the reality we're gonna have and simulate it. Maybe one day we're gonna have these, when looks like almost like they roll over, like you know this. What's the English word, like rouleau compressor cloud type? Oh. I don't know how they're called, but it looks like, you have a front coming, and you almost see it like a spinning cylinder coming up to you. Basically, all this keeps getting better, right? The weather provider have improved their accuracy with the meta, but also basically improving other data source resolutions, and we keep adding more detail and improving it. So I would say step by step. When can we have all types? Well, I don't know how long it's going to take to really have all the little, the smaller the detail, the harder. Like something like the Mamatus, I think, which is the sort of, when you look from below, instead of having a flat ceiling, you have these sort of bubbles. They're fairly small, these bubbles, and so you need to have a good amount of precision to actually represent this in the way we do it, right? It's not it's unfortunately when you move from a sprite or like a imposter, like sort of bitmap based cloud system to something which is full 3D, you get more, well, it's more realistic from all angles, but you can't just paint a cloud anymore. You have to simulate it. And so that's why it's step by step we're getting there. And I would say over the next few updates, we're gonna get basically more and more types in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Seb. Great explanation, what leads to our second question here regarding the meter-based weather. Is there a way to make it optional to go back to the way it was before, or a toggle of some kind to decide if you want it to be meter-based or not?
Well, I think that the best option would be to have meter-based weather being working properly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be our highest priority. There's still a way, I think, with to ask our partners to deliver the older stream, so we can change the older stream for the new one and have a toggle option. But I don't see the point of this. I would love to have a super cool weather and unified for everybody. I think it would be better.
Yeah. Quickly back to the first question, Seb. I see an interesting question in chat here from Shoni. Will this cloud simulation that we're hoping to improve upon, do you anticipate it would have a greater impact on the systems, or are they provided online and streamed to the PC?
Greater impact, you mean performance, or?
I think probably performance, yeah, once there's improved cloud type, different types of clouds. Yeah.
I mean, anything that has more precision, more data it always has a cost. Mm-hmm. Now the cloud system is not specifically very expensive on I mean, if you take a percentage on the whole simulation, I don't know, if you're running at 60 frames per second at in whatever 16 milliseconds, the clouds is maybe 1 or 2. I mean, many of you have probably seen, on the other hand, we've already improved performance quite a bit, maybe to frame rates which are sometimes for some people above what you really need for a flight simulator. And so the idea, and I think we've said that already in the past, is that the performance that we unlock, obviously we're going to use to add more options. I think if we add more resolution in the future to the cloud system, and which unlocks more cloud types, that's probably going to be an option, right? Where you can, just for the terrain, the slider has been made so that you can go higher than it used to be, and probably for the cloud system we're going to add one step above, and and then you can just go one step further in terms of definition, so that we don't force the additional detail on anyone who doesn't, I mean, who's just happy with what he has, but use the additional power. And I mean, hardware always gets better too, but we keep improving the performance of all systems. So using that performance to get better results is a good way to go, I think, and making that optional. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Next highest question from our forums was about wind gusts, and will wind gusts return to live weather? I know there's nothing more fun than feeling the effects, especially in a plane flying around, of wind gusts in certain conditions. So do you have anything you'd like to talk about with this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work going on anything weather that you can't see. So I would say wind, turbulence, draft, all that stuff is currently having a lot of development. So important to know is that in presets you can really tweak the gusts with quite some control. In live weather we currently don't have really gust information. We have in the meta there's a little bit of information so that you can use, but in the other weather, I mean the Meteo Blue based weather source, we have a wind, like basically speed, but it doesn't say, hey, there's a gust every 5 minutes or whatever. So in the past, basically, our gusts have been sort of procedurally generated depending on a few parameters. Sometimes it works, sometimes it was a little bit overdone. So I think we just reduced it a little bit over time. And currently, as we're working in that whole system, we're gonna basically make it more realistic. You're going to see more and improved things like strong updrafts when you're under some specific cloud systems, or like let's say it's a very sunny day. The sun is so we're working on calculations like calculating how much energy the ground receives, how hot it is, so that you can calculate how much there's potentially hot air building up and going up. And this all makes turbulences. So I mean, I remember on final when it's a little bit gray, cold day, and there's not a lot of sunlight in the morning, when you're on final and there's like, I don't know, fields and forests, it's quite calm and easy to sort of maneuver the airplane, and there's not a lot of surprises. And personally, I really don't enjoy going flying on hot afternoons, because there's always a lot of, I mean, people call it the washing machine, but it's, I mean, basically, yeah, when there's a lot of hot ground, there's a lot of air going up and down depending on the area, and it really pushes the plane around. So this is calculations that we're working on. And when the air goes up somewhere, it has to be pulled in from somewhere else. And so this sort of creates, starts creating wind directions which are not anymore uniform, right? If you fly in one area, it goes left and then right, and this starts to create gusts. But these gusts are, instead of being something like, hey, every 1 minute I want a gust or something, they're a little bit more organic and realistic. And on top of that, yeah, we have new tools that allow us to control that better, and so we're gonna reintroduce a little bit more gusts, and maybe on the weather data we can also find data sources that give us more information about gusts. So this is all being worked on.
For high atmosphere, we have something like there's a data source for high altitude turbulence that we've been looking at. But yeah, all in progress.
Fantastic. Yeah, is there any timeline to share on that, or is in progress to be shared a little bit later?
I would say over the next sim updates, we're breaking it up into pieces, and the biggest issue is that it's very hard. It's something which is not very easy for the user to notice. I remember like recently I see more complaints about people saying, hey, there's not enough turbulence, there's not enough. And the problem is that we are, given the way the system is built, because we're in winter and the weather is usually cold, there's not a lot of sunlight, there's not a lot of drafts and turbulence and everything. And I remember last summer, I saw a lot more complaints about, hey, there's too much turbulence, and it was summer and it was hot. And so the system which is currently out there is very much just built on temperature. It doesn't calculate the sun energy, which is, so you could, on a warm winter day, get where there's a lot of sunlight, you could get a lot more turbulence. And that's something we're improving now to make it more realistic. But it's something which is difficult. So sometimes people think the system has been updated for something, and I see people, hey, this is better. And actually it's another day, it's different weather, it's different clouds, it's different something. And it's just different that day. And so there's going to be updates over the next few sim updates. But we're also working on tools so that users can see this in a better way. Basically, which is, I mean, it makes it easier to when you get pushed around, why is that happening, right? Is it just a wind gust? Is it because I flew over a hangar and there was a pocket of hot air, or what has happened actually? So that people can understand. I mean, currently they don't have much, right? There's a windsock and the GPS, and that's about it. So you don't know why, and you can't see anything. And so that's going to be easier. And I think, and even if there's bugs, people are going to have tools to report and say, hey, look, I got a 5,000 foot upwind, and there was nothing really which would have caused that. And so people can report easier.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Okay, thank you, Seb. Last weather question we have here is, when can we expect live weather to be enhanced with more data, such as aerosols, desert data, pollutants from Meteoblue?
I can speak to this. Like, so I think you guys have pointed out some of the shortcomings right now. We know that there's some issues with the meta and specifically the visualization of it too. We want to fix what's there now before we do a bunch of other stuff. We have gigantic goals for weather. Like, trust me, and we're going to get different data streams, more data streams from not just Media Blue, but also from other providers. But let's take one step at a time. Let's fix what we have, make sure that it all works, and then do things like that, which are all cool. But I want a sandstorm. I wanted a sandstorm since we launched, but I have to sort of hold back a little bit until everything works properly.
Yep, totally fair. Thank you so much, Jorg, for that. All right, we'll end that session and talk a little bit, Jorg, about the Donier.
The Donier is doing well. So I was actually seriously thinking about bringing Oliver here today because he has lots of cool stuff to show. But as I said at the beginning, it's not the day to do this. We'll do it soon. It's on track to launch on March 22nd. We just we did a thing that made me very proud. Like, this is super geeking out now. There is one of the Doniers is called the Plus Ultra. I don't know if you're aware of it, but that's actually the reason why it's part of the Sim update, World Update 8, because Spaniards flew from Spain to Argentina in that plane. So that plane is in Argentina, and we tried for literally a year to get that to that museum in Luján, and we just did this last week. We got latest and greatest of the last surviving plane. So that is now. We're making fine little itty bitty tweaks in the cockpit, and we're making tweaks to the outside because it's slightly different, but everything else is coming together great. And I think it's going to be fascinating because it's sort of a full-on water plane. We only had one so far, the Icon. This one is a classic one. So I think you'll really love it. Oliver is super excited. So we'll bring him next time and he can show you.
Yes, that's going to be awesome. Thank you so much, Jorg. And on the note of planes we've sort of announced, Chad is asking, do you happen to have any updates on the ATR we talked about last year?
Yeah, maybe.
I can speak to this. So the ATR is in development with Hans Hartmann, who you've met. Alexander is working on the flight model, and this is full co-dev with Asobo. And the Asobo team is working with them, and we're directly working with ATR. So this is, as we said, this is expert level. That's what we're striving for. I just got a message from Hans on Monday who said things are going great, but it's complex plane, right? So we need to get it right. But it's making really good progress. We'll have Hans here again, but it's a little bit. Hopefully, the world is more back to normal. We hope. Then we'll show you the latest and greatest cool shit that is happening.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, let's move on to, here we go, session 2 of our Q&A. And our first question to Seb. What is the status of the performance degradation over time issue? This is currently in our feedback snapshot, I think in the top 25. I know community's kind of been interested in learning a little bit more about this bug.
Yeah, so it's been on our basically our current, the usual approach when we have something like this is to try reproduce it. And once you have it on a machine in front of you somewhere, you can just go in and say, hey, it's what system is pulling all the resources. I mean, when you go from, I don't know, 40 frames per second to 2, usually you don't even have to do any performance measure or whatever. You just break the debugger, and it's gonna break wherever it's slow, right? It's kind of easy. The issue is that we never found it. It went as far as I've been on my personal development machine running some intercontinental flights overnight, over lunch, or whenever I had meetings, and I never saw.
Does the same.
I even saw. I did a what was it, Dublin, Boston, in a Airbus A320, and I got 2 frame rates. 2 FPS more arriving in the US. So it was even the opposite. So currently we've been unsuccessful. We've done 24-hour flights, a bit of everything. So what we did is then we looked at telemetry, saying, okay, how many people actually have a frame rate degradation? So I think we saw it, right, Martial? But it's not a lot.
No, it's not a lot.
It's not a lot, and we didn't find any really big correlation saying do they have whatever on or off? So it's the only thing we saw is on some screenshots by users, and thank you for making a screenshot when you see an issue. And so on some discussion threads, we saw a screenshot, and it said, hey, on the frame rate display, little colored like yellow turns red when it's slow, whatever. It says manipulator. Being very heavy. So manipulator, it's basically anything in the sim that does systems, right? It's going to be planes, AI traffic, live traffic, stuff on the ground. It can be stuff in the world. It can be the weather system. It can be anything that is sort of the simulation and not rendering or stuff. It can be animations. It can be cockpits. And so all we know is in there. So what we're gonna do, we discussed with Martial and with the tech team, is how can we find what it could be. So what we're going to do now is we're gonna add telemetry and more information, basically, to split up. So this manipulator thing, which is basically what is. So we're gonna split it up into whatever live traffic, simulation, into all the subsystems, and the same in our telemetry, so that when we have the machine that has the issue, or if a user makes a screenshot, we can actually say, hey, it's, I don't know what, it's audio. I don't know whatever it can be, right? Currently there's just too many lines of code. I think it's maybe 10 million or something. If you don't know where it is, I mean, you can look forever. And you can even think you found something and then it was something different. So our strategy now is to add telemetry to find bottlenecks in the code which are slowing down users whenever this happens. And once we have that out in an update, then I hope it's going to be fast to actually, we're going to have data, the users who have the issue, we're going to know exactly where it's slowing down. Yeah. Then we can look into a smaller system. We don't know exactly what, but at least we can say, hey, it's, and also we can, if it's a system that is possibly disabled, then we can at least also immediately give users a workaround saying, hey, just disable this and you will not have the slowdowns anymore. So that's our strategy right now.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Just to add to this subject, I've seen on the chat that people are saying that there's already some thread there and there's some description. So just to let you know, we are following those threads. We are trying to reproduce the issues with the information you're giving us. So yeah, so we already have like a few correlation, but it doesn't seem to be. So maybe there are also different causes for this degradation. So we are looking all areas, and it's a subject here, I can tell you.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it'll be really cool to see that telemetry, and I think it'll help even more than that specific issue. I think it'll help. Send in bug reports for anything else the community is having. So I'm really excited to see that come to the sim soon. So thank you both, Seb and Martial, for that answer. Another question here. We tend to answer this one a lot, but can we talk again about improvements to AI traffic coming up this year?
So I think we talked about this last time, right? AIG wrote us a very detailed, thoughtful document that has been broken down by the team. Honestly, Kai, if you're here, we have to get on the phone at some point here. But that is the plan. We're going to go dig into it and then go fix one thing at a time. But we don't even have to. We feel like the roadmap that all the issues were pointed out. So now it's really up to us to go fix them.
Yeah, and we already did some improvements. I know that, well, at least on the air traffic, the takeoff is now better, but we know that we still have some different layers of improvements. The system has been inherited from FSX, and we added some improvements. We added the real-time air traffic on top of that, but on our side also, it's also a matter of taking some time maybe to reboot the system, and it's something we would like to bring later on.
Awesome. Yep, I see Kai in chat. Very cool. Hello. Oh, next question regarding VR. There are some shimmering issues since Sim Update 5. So, Martial, do we know if there's a fix coming for that?
So this shimmering is for most use cases happening on VR, and I think it has been spotted on Sim Update 5 because we changed the distance where we're putting small details on the rooftops. So this has been seen mostly on VR, and on PC it's not really really the case. So we've got to do things with that. It's certainly happening with the temporal anti-aliasing, and the good news is it's really increased by using the DLSS. So the DLSS is also working VR. So the results we're having shows some smooth and better graphics. We don't see any shimmering anymore, and even by setting the render scale to 50% is bringing performances and quality. So hopefully by using the DLSS, for those who can afford that, it would be a better perception even in VR.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And Marcel, do you have any thoughts on shortening the time it takes to load Microsoft Flight Simulator when you have a large number of add-ons?
Oh yeah, so I was talking previously about FSX in heritage. So the systems we are currently having is reading in all the packages all the information needed for any information that is displayed on the main menu. Even if it's planes or airports, everything is there. So when you've got plenty of those add-ons, it takes time to pass. It takes time to read those information, and that's an issue we are well aware of. So the solution would be to create a new system that puts the information outside of the main title, but in the same way, we've got to make that compliant with the former packages. So it's not that simple. It's also something we've got a team dedicated to package delivery, and it's on their table. So they're thinking about creating a new system that should be compliant with the former one that sorts the information in order to be faster when we are loading them. But it's complicated.
But let's empathize, right? We all agree.
Oh, sure.
We all agree this has to go change. So,
yeah.
but I think what Martial is saying is a pretty deep architectural change.
It is.
So it's going to take us a while, but there's not a person on the team that doesn't want this to go faster. It's just we can't commit to a date yet. That's really what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much.
That is usually my sentence.
Yeah.
I can commit to a date.
Then meet a day. Yay.
All right. I do see a lot of questions regarding the feedback snapshot. We are almost to that section where we will talk about that and answer questions. But last question here. Do we have an update on the revamped ground physics handling and friction? In the past Q&A, we mentioned some work has been done. Can you go into more detail of what was done and what's coming up in the future? Thanks for
Yes.
Seb.
So I don't remember exactly what I said, but definitely last year on Sim Update, when was it? The last one last year was 7, I think. There's been a few. Huh?
It was 7.
Okay. There's been a few improvements on ground physics. I think one was related to an assistance. When you turn on an assistance of which is called maybe ground rudder or something. Basically, it's the thing which, I mean, when you take off in a plane and there's a whatever crosswind and propeller effects, and I mean the plane goes all over the place, and you have a hard time using the rudder to just stay straight, and that is very tough. And then when you rotate, it changes a little bit because you don't have the wheels which hold you a little bit in place anymore, and then you have to do some rudder work again to stay, I would say, more coordinated. So on ground, I think you basically change one system, which is staying straight on the runway, to staying coordinated in flight. And so you have to make the switch. And so the assistance takeoff rudder, whatever it's called, does that for you. and in previously it was just switch off whenever you rotated, and so it made this hard transition when you take off. So that's something which has been fixed, so that this assistance, instead of switching off instantly when you rotate, it sort of gradually fades out over the first 200 or 300 feet once you take off. So it doesn't have this brutal thing where the rudder turns off instantly. And there's other little tweaks and improvements on ground friction that we've been improving, mostly for specific, I would say, specific bug fixes on specific planes. But still, there's a more deeper rework we need to do. Basically, it all comes from heavy simplifications that were in the sim 15 years ago, 10 years ago, which were basically always supposing that the ground was flat, and that's why you couldn't have sloped runways or undulated runways or whatever. And so when we added, and another thing is the ground friction model. Basically, when something is on the ground and it's like, let's say you're on the ground with a plane and the brakes are fully engaged, you don't move at all, right? The plane doesn't move, it sticks to the ground. There's what one could call infinite friction, or basically there's no movement at all, right? So there's no friction. And this is something that we've added. It didn't exist at all. And it wasn't really needed 10 years ago because there was no slopes. So when you put a plane on a flat terrain without wind, it's not gonna roll anyway, right? Or anywhere, it's gonna stay in place. But if you put that same system on a slope, well, it's just gonna roll away and not stay there. And so the other thing is there's also wind. So historically in the sim, basically there was a system so that at low speeds, any crosswind, any wind is really canceled out. The plane ignores any form of wind when you are below, I don't know, maybe it's really slow, right? Maybe 10 feet per second or 5 feet per second, which is why when you're stopped on the ground, you go full propeller power, and then the plane, there's some propeller effect, so the plane is going to start going left, and then all of a sudden the wind kicks in, and then if you don't have any wind, it doesn't change it. But if you have a strong crosswind, then the wind kicks in, and then it does this sort of thing, which is not really realistic. And in reality, if I have a plane on the ground, there's a strong wind, and I release all brakes, it's going to start moving, right? There's no, I mean, the wind is going to push it. And that currently does not happen. So there are changes like that we want to do. We want to redo the ground friction model to make it 100% realistic and exact, which means that we can then, we don't have to do anything. The wind is just going to be there. We don't have to cancel it out anymore. And so that everything is going to be realistically simulated from when you stop to when you take off, and in continuously. There's no such thing as crosswind, which comes in over a few knots. And so I think it's going to make the rudder a little bit easier because you're just fighting one crosswind, right? It doesn't change over time. I mean, unless there's gusts. And also it's going to work better on slopes. And so this rework is planned basically for somewhere this year, whenever we have time to go into that. It's going to be compatible because the parameters are the same, right? The friction doesn't change. It doesn't really change anything in the way you define or create or make airplanes. It just changes the way I would say all the constraints and forces are solved at the end, so that the plane does what it's supposed to do. And all the constraints are basically the friction, the ground friction, the prop wash, the wind, and even the engine, which is slightly shaking the plane. All these things come together and are correctly solved. Currently, it's a little bit better because we worked more in a bug fix development system, where we said, oh, the plane is sliding on a slope, let's fix that. Oh, the plane is sliding when there's wind, let's fix that, and fix this and this and this and this. And in the end, we're in a situation where, okay, now we need to just implement a real system that does it instead of having a block of patches. And that's basically the next step. And that will give us, I think, much more realistic, like the precise moment when you rotate. one thing which, just an example, a wheel is currently simulated as a single point. So a wheel can resist, when you brake, it can resist movement or rolling or slides. It does not resist rotation. A wheel can currently in the sims rotate like I don't know how to, like this, without any resistance. If you're in your car and you're parked and you turn the steering wheel, if you don't have the assisted steering wheel, it's I mean, you feel it's not easy to turn the tire, right? Because it's not a point, it's a flat surface. It's a patch. It's a patch on the ground of rubber that you're moving. And so the new simulations can allow this. Nice. And so this helps a little bit in stability, right? When you're taking off, currently the plane is just a tripod of points. And as soon as the nose is up, you feel that, oh, it's already twisting. And the wheels are not, because they're not simulated as little patches of rubber, they don't resist rotation enough. And so these kind of changes are going to make I mean, it's a quick moment of whatever, 10 seconds or 20 seconds of takeoff, a lot more precise and realistic.
Cool.
And yeah, later this year.
Cool. That's fantastic. Thank you for that answer, Seb.
And yeah, that's what is happening.
You press the Seb button.
Yeah.
You asked for more detail.
Yeah.
I love that.
We all do.
Going back, I know, Marcel, you touched a little bit on DLSS. I'm seeing a question in chat here. I do think we talked about this in a previous Q&A. It's been a while, though. They're asking for AMD users if we have looked into FSR for Fidelity FX to be supported sometime in the future.
I can tell because this is really engine related. I know that they're working on all the systems that are currently existing. I know that we are using DLSS as a reference for these kind of technologies, but for FSR, I don't know what has been done, to be honest. I'll give you more information during the next Q&A, I promise. I've taken some notes about this also.
Okay, thank you. We will move on now to our feedback snapshot. And before we delve into that, I wanted to talk about a little change the community team is working on in the forums. So our goal in the forums is to really be more efficient in reporting and fixing these community reported issues that we see, right? So with that said, there are a few changes coming in the forums. Right now we have that bugs and issues section. We're actually going to be splitting that into 2 different sections. So we're going to have a bug reporting section and a community help section. Basically, the community help center is going to be a place to get solutions for the community to kind of talk to each other, and then we'll keep that bug reporting section really just for bugs that only our team is able to fix. And in this section, we're going to have a new plugin basically that gives us new templates. So when someone does report a bug, there'll be a really handy button there that'll say contribute to this bug report that will allow you to answer some questions to help us try to reproduce the issue. So we're really excited to make that change here in the next week or so. And on top of that, I know there are some of those mega threads that have made it that are in our top bugs issues in our feedback snapshot. So we're working on breaking down some of those, trying to find single issues within them to kind of merge them into their own threads so we can really track each one individually. But I think overall it'll be better for us, better for the community to get those bugs squashed this year. So just look out for those changes on the forums soon. That said, community chat, if you have questions, here is our top wish list snapshot. I know we don't want to go through everything, so if you have questions on this, let us know and we'll see if we can answer some. I know I already saw a question earlier, so we could probably go over that. Our number 34 item here says add a vegetation render distance slider. This has recently been updated on the snapshot, so people are asking about this slider, if it's coming, what it is. I think Seb, you might be able to talk on this one.
Yes. So what I remember is that there is already a slider in the sim. which is called, what is it called? Vegetation, it's called Vegetation Distance. And which does exactly that, right? I don't know what's the name in in English in the text, but it's really exactly like the terrain distance slider and the object and the building distance slider. It does the exact same on the vegetation. When you push it up and down, it moves the vegetation distance up and down. The only thing we cannot do is so basically there's a maximum distance. If you basically like, let's say, I think there's like LOD numbers, level of detail of terrain, and the highest LOD, like the biggest and furthest LOD which can hold vegetation is a specific LOD. If that one is too close, then you cannot go further than that. And that's what the current slider does, right? It pushes vegetation in and out up to that maximum distance. And so if you currently set the vegetation slider to the max and you take the terrain LOD factor, which used to go to 200, which can now go to 400, that is going to push your vegetation out. So, I mean, I don't really understand the question, so maybe we can explain that or make the text better or whatever. But I think that's what the change was when we added the terrain distance number, and we made it so that the vegetation slider actually is impacted by that. So they sort of work together. I'm gonna look at it into it again.
Okay.
Maybe we can change the name of that slider. Maybe it just says vegetation. I don't know what it says, and make it clearer. Or if people can specify exactly what they want instead of, I mean, anything else. But currently that's what it does, right? It scales the distance of the detail of the trees and puts it more or less into distance, sorry, up to that maximum LOD, which is currently at 400. And well, we can't go further because there's no data, right? So if we want to have trees farther away, we need to download the data and know where there's trees, and then we can put them in there.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it says it has been partially solved or something.
I mean, honestly, this is the problem we have a little bit, right? Some of these items are they have grown. Like the initial comments were quite concise, and then they sort of spread a little. We fix some stuff, and then it moves. And that's kind of what Jane was just talking about. We need to go. We're doing this with the bugs because the bugs are. It's very difficult sometimes when you have like 60 things in a bug and one headline. What do we put in a feedback snapshot like this? So I think what we might want to do, Jane, is just change the title, because certain things have been fixed here and certain things are also still open.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. And going back to the top 10 here, I saw someone in chat ask if you have any updates regarding the scenery gateway system.
I can talk to those a little bit. I kind of know. Oh, you want to go, Bossard?
No. Please, be my
I mean,
guest.
so the dev is hired, and we are now testing the system with one of our close partners. So we are one step away from testing it with the community. But we want to make sure it actually mostly works before we throw it out there for y'all. But it's making good progress, and that should tell you everything. We're committed to making this great. So we have identified, I think, 4 people outside of Asobo to give us feedback, and then we'll take it from there and bring it out to everybody. I mean, the tool is for y'all, so it's getting there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jorg. Bringing it on to this last slide here. I'm just checking. Okay, here's a question over number 31. Let me get to that. 31 is about thermals up and down drafts. Oh, we did talk about that earlier today, so I think timeline on that. Yep.
Yeah.
He's working on that. I think it's up to date and accurate, so we're good there. Okay. All right, and for any other updates, as you can see, we kind of started including these text updates for the top wishes. So we will update that as we get information on our dev updates on
so
Thursdays.
Jane, if you could ask, right? So we've because I updated this. If this is really useful to you, we can probably extend it some, right? Like we picked the top 10.
Yeah.
Totally arbitrary number. We could do the top 20, you know. Are these single line updates useful? So, you know, sometimes it's, you say something, we hear it, we throw something back out, and then I don't hear back. So it would be great to hear, like, is this good? Do you want something different? Should we expand that?
Yeah.
Like, so just give a little bit of feedback. Happy to do it.
Okay. A few comments in chat says, yes, these are great. I did see a comment in the forums when we first did this that basically said that it was really great to see this for those maybe who don't attend the dev Q&As or need just a reminder and aren't watching the videos. So, yeah,
well,
seemingly
we'll play
useful. With it. Okay, awesome. All right, going into our last Q&A here.
Jane, I wanted to say something.
Yes.
If I could. Because somebody, I know I picked a random comment, but I wanted to talk. Somebody said, hey, focus on the core sim, don't focus on stuff like Xcloud, who cares? So I just want to give a little bit of perspective.
Sure.
We have 200 and I don't know, I don't have the exact number, 220, 230 people working on the sim total in various locations. This Xcloud effort was one programmer and a half of a UI person for a few months. All this work and the magic of, and I honestly think it's amazing, was done by the Microsoft-based Xcloud streaming team. And they have an API, we call the API. There were some things that had to be moved around, like with downloading the world updates.
The installation process.
In the main chunk to make it faster to get to fun, really. But we're not getting distracted with stuff like that. It's just a benefit of being in this ecosystem. So just wanted to say that because I know people are concerned.
Certainly, yeah. I think they're always curious, like how many devs are allocated to certain things in the sim, core sim stuff, and whatnot. So thank you. That's great. Great. The first question here for this Q&A session is, will the maximum number of engines be increased? This is related to the SDK, of course, and I think, Seb, you can answer this one.
Yes.
Yeah, stop here. No,
yeah, I know this has been around. There's basically a few places in the sim where it says maximum engine number 4 and maximum propeller number 4, and so we need to increase this. Yeah, it's going to happen in the next few months. The biggest question that we have is, do we want to pick a number, whatever, 6, 8, and make it 6 and 8, and then in 1 year someone comes and says, hey, I need 10 engines, or do we want to spend a little bit more time on it and make it fully dynamic so it can be 20, whatever. I mean, the Volocopter at 16, I think, and we did a workaround. Ideally, it could be dynamic, and but it's going to be a little bit more work. But it's just a matter of changing it everywhere and not breaking anything. But otherwise, I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't do 10 or.
Let's
8.
just say without announcing what the plane is, but we have a local legend that has a lot
more
of
than that. Yeah.
Ooh, there's a hint.
Yeah.
What is it?
We also have to change the passing systems for the CFGs, CFG files.
Cool. Great, thank you. All right, this is a great topic to go into a little bit. There are a few serious mouse panning regression bugs. One, a free look causing controls to freeze. There's one where a middle mouse button resets pilot view. I know there's also one not mentioned here where your mouse disappears sometimes when you do things like use the arrow keys. Do we have any updates on these mouse regression bugs, Marcel?
Maybe for not of all these bugs, but at least for some of them. So we know that we've got some. If we talk about inputs in general, we know that we have introduced some bugs with Sim Update 5 when we did some optimization and to do some new economy for 2-axis inputs. So by doing that, we introduce some context, and those contexts can sometimes exclude ways of doing things. So I know, for instance, that when you using the free log camera, for instance, it's removed the inputs on some axes, and it's not good. So we want to improve that. It's also we are also had some because I'm speaking about Wloch. We were also getting some issues when using the Wloch, and the cameras could be resetted, and that has been fixed. And also because you were talking about the cursor, I know that we've also fixed the bug that was preventing users to use any kind of axis for moving the icon cursor. So this has been fixed too. So everybody will be able to manipulate the cursor, the menu, the cockpit by using any other axis or button. So this should come with Sim Update. Everything I think will come with Sim Update 9. And is there anything I'm missing here?
The right mouse button stuff. I mean, we know there's some bugs. So some I think the chat's right. Some have been fixed in Sim Update 8, but there's some other things. We're going to do a full. We have to do a full look. Like honestly, I was just hearing some bugs even on Xcloud, so we just need to look at it.
Yeah, sure. And for everything related to Wloch, it will be linked to Sim Update 9. That's for sure. It's already
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for the update there. All right. My cat. Are there any plans to improve ambient traffic or anything else that brings the world to life below Jorg?
Well, I mean, yes, to the point that seven myself is sick of me saying something about bringing the world to life. Ambient traffic. Well, yes, but it's a question of exactly when. But yeah, I mean, my view, there's the air traffic. We've obviously talked about that, and then there's everything else. And we're making a digital twin. You know, at some there's an endless task, but we will get closer and closer.
Yeah.
But we're here for a long time, right? So, but this is going to get better and better.
Awesome. This is a chat question from a little bit earlier. Do we have any improvements coming that might update the download experience? That meaning when you download from the MS Store, then you do the InSim update, and then Content Manager updates. It's often cumbersome, but wondering how you feel about this experience and if we might look into improving it in the future.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit. Cumbersome is a friendly word to say it. It is not good. And we know that it needs to be, there's a re-architecture needed for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Hold on, switching screens here. Okay, what about the splash screen after hitting the icon to launch the game? I think we all know when you launch the game, you wait a little bit. Occasionally you think, did I actually press it? You'll press it again. Then you'll get the pop-up that says you're already running. Do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, we know that the sim is getting very long to get initialized, and the good news is that it's going to be improved in Sim Update 9. What can I say on top of that? So I don't want to do some finger pointing here, but you know, most of the code here is homemade, but some is not. So it's not like we're in control of 100% of the code here, and so we have some issues there. But at least we did what we can do, and I think the improvement will be significant in Sim Update 9. It won't be world changing, but it is already. On the PC I've tested, it was like it was divided by 2 at least. So
yeah. Okay. That's good. So we'll see probably some improvement in Sim Update 9. Awesome. Thank you, Martial. All right. Can you add the ability to open doors and canopies on default aircraft?
So we're putting it currently into our local legends and famous flyers. If you looked at the Beechcraft Stagger Wing that just came out, it has that. We are adding it. I can say that much. We're adding it to. There's going to be an update. Oh man, we should talk about this. So Oliver has been hard at work to make the. We collected all your feedback on the Junkers, and we fixed most of it, maybe all of it. And then we're very well aware that the Fokker wasn't exactly perfect. So the team has been working on that since launch. There will be updates We actually tried to get it done yesterday. We are now shooting for the 22nd of March. Both of them will have opening doors and things like that. And then long term, we're talking about those types of things for everything. But it's a bunch of work. So let's get it done for the local legends and famous flyers first, and then we'll spread it to other things. But it's in the plan. We are aware that it should be there.
Yep. Cool. Thank you. All right. So that will conclude our Q&A session today. But question for you three.
I mean, Jane, this is one of
Yes.
those. I am, because I don't want to people join, but I'm fine taking some out of the chat again. Like,
Okay.
I feel like
can
some of
keep
these
going.
things, some of these things never show up in the feedback snapshot, right? Just because of magnitude might not be that big, but doesn't mean it's not meaningful or important. Just a few.
I've seen in the chat people asking about the progress on helicopters. So maybe you can give a quick update on that.
Sure.
So we've finished the propeller system, and it's been out on Sim Update 8. I've spent some time helping plane makers using it. It's going to get better in Sim Update 9, meaning so the system hasn't changed, but the tools to use it have been improved. The CFD is going to be out in Sim Update 9. Currently, we're targeting only for one plane, which is the 172. Because we wanted to go fly it and test it and make sure because it changes the stall a little bit. It changes. I think it feels a lot more lively, a lot more alive, a lot more realistic. But it's very subtle, and so we wanted to change it and test it. But that's coming live, and but it's coming live in a way that users can, plane makers can turn it on, and it's really just a click or an option to add, and you can turn it on. But sometimes it may require a little bit of tweaking. On our plane, it actually didn't require anything, but it may a little bit. And so the next big thing that we need to do on helicopters, which will actually also benefit planes. So that's always our goal, is to, as much as we can, share the improvements over the whole sim. Is that on helicopters, one very important phenomenon is that the blades are not, I would say, rigid, right? They're soft, they're shaped, they're moving, and they act a little bit like a spring. When a blade has and they don't have the same lift all around, when they spin around the helicopter. As soon as you start moving, or in a lot of situations, the lift is not the same. Or even when they change the pitch, the lift is not the same all around the circle. And so it's basically like a wing that does not have the same lift all the time. I would say it comes a little bit back to wing flex, but it's not the animation side which is important. It's the fact that the lift is stored and delayed, and the blade basically stores the lift and then puts it back onto the helicopter a little bit later. Usually that, combined with the gyroscopic effect, provides this 90-degree shift of all the controls of the helicopter. And so we want to make it in a way that we get this little bit of storage and delayed restitution of lift on every surface, and not just helicopter blades. What this is going to bring is a little bit more. When you fly a plane, a plane is not like a rigid thing which is like steel and never moves. Like, it's all like, especially if you go into a big airliner, go into it's a 777, go to the back, put your eye onto the ground, you're gonna see how it flexes and squishes in the wind. And this basically creates a little bit of delay and smoothness of the simulation. When you get a wind bump or air hole or gust, or when you put an input, the whole plane, if you have the system where each surface can store a little bit of energy and delay it, it's gonna soften the whole, like, make it a little bit smoother and more realistic. That's something where people say, hey, your planes don't have enough mass, or something is missing, they are too reactive. I think it's that, because all the rest is mass is correct, everything's correct. But in reality, when one wing gets a boost of lift, it doesn't instantly move the whole plane. It takes, whatever, it's small, right? It's a tenth of a second or so of bending the wing a tiny little bit before it restitutes that energy. And on the helicopter, that's like a key. Like, it completely changes the aerodynamics. But on a plane, it's gonna make the experience better. So that's the next big step. And then, I mean, then we have all the blocks, the foundations to make a helicopter fly. So then it's all about just putting the surfaces together, putting the controls in, and then there's going to be a lot of work on basically tuning a helicopter and assistance and all that. But that's where we are.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Seb. I think I see you talking, but you are muted.
I know, because my neighbor decided to mow his lawn.
Oh, great.
And it's raining. Makes no sense. But anyways, so I've been looking for manufacturing partners for Seb, really. So because we want to learn as much as possible about helicopters, and I think I finally succeeded in the first one. That's going to basically have Seb directly talk to the engineers, make sure that everything that is special to helicopters is debatable with them. So that's good. And we're targeting a second partner that we hope to close next week. But I mean, Seb has done great progress already. This is basically putting the bow on it. Right now we have deep insights into the actual telemetry of helicopters, how the thing really works. So that's really good news. I'm very happy about it.
Yes, it is. Thanks. Yeah, I got some great Twitch questions here. The first is, do you have any updates on shared cockpit?
That's special.
No, we do not.
Okay, no updates. Maybe
No
later
updates,
this year.
sorry.
We'll be able to talk about it more. Another question we have is, how is the queue looking for new marketplace releases? The devs are eager, customers waiting. What are your thoughts?
So I think the numbers are, we have 80 things in the hopper right now. The team is working as hard as they can to get this out. The specific thing I think the question relates to is the planes that have WASM in it. So as I said earlier, I think you might have missed that. We do believe we have a solution. There's currently an epic debate if this solution can be for sim update 9 or 10. That's the debate.
Okay.
And Marcial, you and I have talked about it. Laurent's
Yep.
very well aware of it. So
yes, everybody's aware of that.
yes, everybody's aware of it. And so
Yeah.
I personally think this is of the top importance. So I would like to get this prioritized, but there's always a trade-off, right? That means something else doesn't get done as quick.
Very true. All right, thank you so much. Next question from chat. Would we be able to expect private servers, locally hosted, or sessions similar to FSX GameSpy, or at least larger group sizes? Moderation is necessary, especially for communities. Private servers would make so many things more possible. I appreciate all the hard work so far. That's from Chunky Aviation.
Well, there is something there's a feature cluster we call social, and it's in that. And we will be meeting on this particular subject matter, the greater box. This is a piece of a greater box. I don't know, Marcial, in the next few weeks, I think that's the plan. We're doing a mind map exercise on Friday. It's part of that. So we know that people we want flight clubs, we want all this. It's just how do we fit it in and when? I don't think this is going to happen this year, to be perfectly blunt, because it's not that simple given our architecture, but it's something we know we want. So being more social, bringing people together. I mean, honestly, Jane, you do an awesome job with community fly-ins. I love it, love it, and we should make this a lot more friction-free for everybody to do this.
Yeah,
and combine together. It's fully understood.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question here. Seb, do you know what the next aircraft are to get the propeller upgrades introduced in some update 8?
Sorry, what aircrafts have been updated?
No, currently we have the 3 that got updated. Yeah. Do you know what the next ones might be that we can?
So for sim update 9, we are introducing the Cessna 172 with the CFD airflow simulation. And for that to really, I mean, it would have worked without, but to fully take advantage of it, we also updated the propeller simulation. So the 172 is already done. So I think for sim update 9, it's just gonna be that. And I've been helping plane makers to try to use this, so which slowed us down a little bit on our side. And also I've improved the tools to actually make it easier to port to the new system with SimUpdate 9. That was my priority. And so I would say we can, I mean, based on maybe feedback, what people request, I would say the planes which have a lot of propeller effects, like P factor, benefit more from the system. On the 172, I mean, you could feel it, but it was a little bit weak. I think we used that plane because for the CFD, we wanted to have the plane that we could the easiest test with our like basically measurement tools. And that was the plane that we could easily access. So that's why we chose that one to port it over. But I mean, I can, the biggest bottleneck for us is testing. When we update a plane, we need to make sure it gets thoroughly tested, and we can't just update all propeller planes in one in one update.
Yeah. Okay. Another question I saw was about our current local legends releases. Will we see updates to those aircraft in the future?
Oh, that's what I just said. Maybe I wasn't clear. So there is Oliver and Orbex both have been working hard on getting the Junkers bugs fixed, and I think you will be very happy with what happens to the Fokker. Like I've seen it. Obviously, I see it every week, and they're doing great. So yes, we're not a one and done shop. So we're going to continue to update them until everybody loves them.
Awesome, thank you. Another repeating question is, do we have any information on adding freeware to the marketplace? Will that be a thing in the future?
So yes, the simple answer is yes. It's been on our feedback snapshot forever, and so it's really just we did the marketplace 2.0. It was a brief discussion for that. Yeah, I mean, I can say the answer is yes, it's coming. We don't have a date. It's not difficult. It's more of a, what are the filters we use? Because we can't just flood the marketplace team. It still has to go through ingestion, right? So that's the thing. And right now when people are saying, hey, when do we get the Hawk? When do you get this? When do you get the Pipers? Well, it's the same team, right? And that team has grown crazy since we started. When we started, we had one person. That was probably innocent. I think now it's 8. So we'll just see exactly how much. But I've been looking at a freeware plane just last night for a variety of reasons, and I'm like, man, we should really have this in our marketplace. So maybe we can do this sooner.
Okay.
Timely.
Thank you. Are there any other questions you see that you'd like to answer? We have a couple more minutes. I'm reading chat now. I think you should,
because otherwise we'll just pick the ones that we like. With a big equalizer, yeah.
That sounds good. I did see a question earlier about a certain bug about icing not being able to be turned off. It says setting it to off still freezes the plane over. I don't know if any of you have information on that.
I've seen that. It just surprised me because there are 2 options there. The first one, for the freezing, it's just turning off the effect on the planes. So if you turn off the icing effect, so it will turn the icing effect on the plane. So the weight and everything that can bring some damages on the planes. But if you also want to remove the visual effects, the icing visual effect, there's another option. So if you don't want any kind of icing, you have to switch those 2 options off. So maybe it's ready to do that.
Yeah, we're gonna test. I don't know. It's maybe something got broken, but I think there's this. You can have it visual, you can have it physical and physically simulated, and then completely off. So we'll test again.
Yeah. Okay. Question about the FA-18. Are there going to be future updates to that? For example, external fuel tanks.
There's future updates coming with the Maverick Top Gun release.
Oh, cool. Okay. Good to know. Here's a question we never get. A personal question for all you 3. What is your favorite type of weather to fly in your free time?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Morning, sunny, cold weather, no turbulence.
Nice.
I would say that
That's so
I,
funny.
don't, I love getting some not dramatics, but like some mood on the because I'm flying for most of it. I'm flying VR4 and on different kind of area because I love discovering areas. So I'm always setting up with scattered clouds and beginning of end of the day to have like the perfect lighting for that. So it's when I'm not working, because when I'm working with sim, obviously I need to test in plenty of situations. But for just my personal usage in VR, that's what I'm using.
Nice.
Yeah, for me, it comes down to the mood, right? I mean, sometimes I want to go explore a place, right? And like, for example, right now I've been flying around Spain, right? Because we have a Spain update coming out, and I do that in bright daylight, nice weather. I want optimal view because I'm literally I'm just a sightseer at that point in time. And then sometimes I'm like, I'm sort of in, I don't want to do a landing challenge or something, so I'm in adventure mode. I get myself a storm and I'm trying to fly over some mountains and I don't do well at all. But, you know, so it really just comes down to what the mood is and how much time I have.
Awesome. I think I have one more question here. I'm going to go back to our feedback snapshot. We'll close this out. Users asking about our number 10 slot here. Enhanced API to access all aircraft states. We were wondering if you could provide any information on this.
We need to have a meeting on this. So this came in 2 weeks ago or so, and at least in the top 10. And we typically have a meeting on the feedback snapshot where we actually talk it through. And we didn't have it the last 2 weeks. Maybe it's not clear to y'all, but we just did a platform launch, right? So this was kind of stressful. But we need to actually sit down and really talk this through. I know the team looked at it, but we haven't had, I was not part of the discussion. I don't know if you guys were. Is that myself?
Okay.
You know? No, I don't think so. I think this is going to be a next week thing. We'll try to get more the output of this.
Great. Thank you, Jorg. All right, it's almost noon here. Now we'll call that good. If there's any follow-ups, we will certainly follow up either in the forums or in our next Q&A at the beginning. And is there anything any of you three would like to say before we close out this session today?
Thanks for everything. Sorry for the heavy beginning. I'm not trying to bore you, but maybe next time the world is a happier place. Next time we meet in a month, I hope so. Then we can talk about all kinds of fun, cool things that are coming. Because I saw people like, hey, well, you're just hinting at stuff. Well, we didn't want to celebrate today. But thank you.
Thanks. All right, everyone in chat, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you taking the time to ask questions and be with us today. This video will be up on YouTube either later today or tomorrow morning, as well as a text version probably sometime next week. So we hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye, everyone.